Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman. Today, I got a real treat for you. His name is Vineet Kapila, and he is the Construction Projects Superintendent for Columbia, Missouri. Vineet, say what's up there, everybody.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Joseph, thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Dude, sure thing, man. You came by way of referral. I was told by a mutual friend of ours, you got to get Vineet on the show. And it's interesting because she said, Vineet's not that he doesn't really want to do all these talky events, but he's definitely a good talker. So you should get him on the show. So I said, yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, I kind of ran through that too with my wife as well. She's like, it's like, well, you get nervous about that stuff. She's like, just go be you, and you're good at it. Why don't let that stuff get to you?
100%. And that's I mean, kind of like you see the questions. Like we're talking about you. I'm not asking you about, how to put a rocket in the air. It's just about what you do all day, who you are, what makes you tick. So it's harmless, man. It's harmless. All right, so let's get into it. So give us the origin story of Vineet. Kind of walk us through the path of, let's say, from high school to the position you're in today. What was that career trajectory like?
Sure. I started out, I think, like a lot of people, got out of high school, didn't really know. I didn't really know for sure what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. Didn't know if I wanted to work or go to school. And so actually, I knew a girl that I was friends with in high school. Her dad owned they were a residential and commercial roofing company. So I worked roofing houses, just kind of as a laborer for about a year, and talking with some of the older guys there. And just kind of thinking to myself, it's pretty hard work, right? And, nothing against the trades. I love those guys. I work with them now, every day. But just thought maybe I'd try to do something different. And we have a technical college here that at the time it was Lynn State Technical College. Now it's State Technical College in Missouri. They changed names. But went there. They had a civil engineering technology program is what it was called. And to be honest with you, at that time, I didn't know really even what civil engineering was. And based on what I was doing, like I said, working in residential, commercial construction, I kind of thought it'd be vertical construction. So I was a little bit kind of bummed out, when we get into it. I'm like, oh, this is all about roads and things like that. But then sat in there through it, and I really enjoyed it. Got done, graduated with that. And so I applied to work for the city of Columbia. And I got a job I was a temporary employee on the survey crew. So I started all the way at the bottom, man, and but just from there, I worked as that temp position for about a year. And then from there was able to get on as an inspector for just watching private development, and did that for a couple years, and then was promoted up to what we call like the CIP inspectors, which what they're called now is project compliance inspectors. And which is actually ironically that's what I'm doing now is I'm over those guys. But I did that for quite a while, probably about 8 or 9 years. And then I've been fortunate enough to be promoted a couple other times. They've always kind of been in public works, even if they weren't necessarily in that department. It was still in public works. But worked as a compliance officer where you dealt with some things with prevailing wage and a lot of the subcontracts for federal funding and things like that. And even worked at the landfill for a couple of years. We have a bioreactor landfill here, which is pretty cool. Actually, we're the only one in Missouri. But at the time, it was Public Works. Now it's part of the utility department. But like I said, there's a lot of overlap in this, just how cities and counties are broke up. But did that, and I've also worked in like the permitting with utilities and things like that. And ultimately got here to the Construction Project Superintendent position, which what I do now is basically I'm over the construction side of our capital improvement projects for public works. So it's sidewalks, streets. We have some bridges. We have a bridge project going right now, and another one. And I've been doing this for about 2.5 years now. That's where I'm at. So working at the city of Columbia is kind of like my first real job. I've been here almost 20 years. I think starting out it was just kind of a job for me, but I live here in town, so my wife and I, my kids, we drive on the streets, we walk on the sidewalks, use the trails, but live here. Run into people from the grocery store that you see and ask you about projects. We're not a huge place here, probably about think we're about 120,000 now. Before the schools, we have
That's a good size.
Yeah, but it's been a great place. That's kind of what keeps me going in it, and what I like is I feel like even though it's just one little part of it, I feel like you get to feel like I make a difference, you know. And
Yeah.
I think that's something I hope we can, you know, or I was talking to high school kids or something. That's something I'd really like to tell them is that's part of what you're doing for this. Is you may not always make as much money as some of the other ones, but you get to really make a difference in your community, and that's worth a lot.
Dude,
you know.
Yeah, and your story is legit because, and not saying others aren't legit, but you started at the bottom. You get what I'm saying? You started like literally at the bottom, and then also you live in the city, so I'm sure it's probably pretty cool. Like, hey, I worked on that project 8 years ago, or I used to be in that department with those guys 10 years ago, and now you're moving your way up, and I'm sure you still got some more upside to your career. But like starting at the bottom, I'm sure that gives you a different sense of like ownership to the guys who are under you in the projects they're working on. How do you use that experience of being at that level and now being at the level you're at?
I think it helps. Like I said, I have a pretty good relationship with the guys that work for me now. Two of them, one of them was actually an inspector when I got hired here, so I've known him almost 20 years. Actually, he's getting pretty close to retire now, but I've known them a lot, and I think it helps knowing I have an understanding of what they're doing day to day and the problems that they're dealing with, and and the challenges and things like that. That I understand that. And then the other thing too is I don't have an ego with this stuff, and I try to tell them I want them to know too if they want to come in and talk to me about something at home or whatever, that's fine. I have a door here. They can close it. We can talk about whatever you need to, work or home stuff. I'm here. I'm here for you guys. You guys are the ones. Without you guys, I'm not anything either. So that's kind of how I look at it. Yeah, but I think, I like it. I like the fact that I came in at the bottom and worked my way up. It makes me feel good.
And one word that's huge, and I wouldn't say it just started in the last 5, 10, 15 years, but the word ego. And you and I both know public works is mainly male dominant. And with men, you get egos. You get some rightfully so, and some are like, dude, well, who are you to think you got any type of ego around here? But how do you kind of keep your ego at check or at bay as you're making your ascent? Because I'm sure you started out with guys who might not have made those same leaps and bounds if you had, or you might have surpassed people who've been in positions that didn't work out for them and it worked out for you. So as a man, how do you keep your ego at check or at bay to where you stay level-headed?
It's another thing. We'll talk about it some more, I think, with some of the other questions. But a lot of that stuff, you have to be cognizant of it and be aware of it, and just try to keep that stuff out of it. The other thing, which I hope I don't get myself in trouble saying this, but I had 3 sisters growing up, and then now I have 3 daughters. So I think that gives me a little bit, that stuff just for me, even outside of work, it doesn't work. I don't get anywhere with it. Sure, there's some things that I'll be passionate about too, but for the most part, it's just thinking about it and just, like you said, keeping it in check. And you see it happen so much in this industry where there's people that are so talented, they're incredibly talented, incredibly smart, and they let things, whether it's their ego or attitudes, get in the way, and set themselves back. And some of those guys have been, like I said, the most talented people I've been around in my career, and it holds them back.
I noticed that in sports also. It sometimes uses the most talented kid on your squad, and he's the biggest head case, or has the biggest ego, or the biggest attitude problem, and puts the coaches in a bind because they need the kid to play so they can win the game. But everybody else on the team's like, they're level-headed, they're well-to-do citizens. They're like, should I act like him to be successful? So it's interesting, that divide that we have within public works or even in sports, that ego can kind of be the bad apple that ruins the bunch unless it's checked.
Sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's say you're like you alluded to earlier, talking to high schoolers. So let's say a high schooler is like, Vineet, like, I want to be like you one day. I want to have a cool beard and do all that and have 3 daughters. And he also wants to be a good project superintendent. What skill set would you tell him to pick up to be successful at what you're doing today?
There's a few things. I think which this is one I wanted to make sure to talk about. There's a technical side to this that's definitely a huge component of it, and that part you can pick up. You can learn that some whether you go to school, whether like I said, whether you get an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, you can get some of that, and then you can get a lot of that in the real world experience as well. But I think sometimes what people don't think about is there's the other half of this, which I think it's half is like the people component, and it's huge because it's whether you're communicating with someone internally that's in another department, or it's a utility, or it's a property owner. Like, you have to be able to communicate with people. You have to do it. It's critical. I really can't stress that enough. And then, like, especially, you have to be able to listen. You got to be able to listen. And that kind of goes back to the ego thing we were just talking about. But, again, it doesn't matter who you are. You're never going to know it all, especially at this day and age. Technology and things, which it's amazing to see, but it's changing so fast that I don't care who you are, you're not going to keep up with all of it. You're just not going to be able to. And then back to the property owner or business owner, everyone look at that. A lot of times, in those difficult situations, they need someone just to listen to them. And that'll diffuse a lot of a situation right there. Is just being able to listen, just be quiet, and let them get their piece out, and then you can go from there. But that really means a lot. And then something else I like to try to do too is on the projects we have where it may have a direct impact to a business or a property owner, homeowner. I'll try to go talk to them myself with the inspector. Just say, hey, here's who I am. Here's a phone number. If you have any concerns or whatever, call me. I mean, I can't fix everything, right? But I'll do what I can for you. But so just being able to listen. One other thing, kind of again with the ego and being aware of, is it's a stressful job. It's stressful, but it's going to be that way whether you let yourself get all worked up or not. And I think that's something too. It's a skill. I'm sure we may all be predisposed to be a certain way a little bit, but it's also a skill, and you gotta learn to keep yourself calm.
What's Vinny's best practices to keep yourself calm? Like, let's be actionable. What do you do to kind of step away, to kind of go, ooh, like let me see it for what it is and not freak out about everything? Like, how do you keep it at bay?
I think some of that's a mindset too. Like, we had a situation that came up on a project yesterday. It could have been pretty bad, but it's some of these. The first thing you got to do is really look at everything and make sure that we actually have a problem, right? And because sometimes it may seem like there's a really big problem, but it's not. So first thing, that's what I try to do. Try to look at your plans, try to look at your technical specifications, read through everything, make sure you're understanding where we're at, and then go from there. And just like I said, it's an active exercise in your head. You got to tell yourself, because it's going to happen. There's going to be stuff that lets you, and then may even have too. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I don't ever get excited or worked up or nervous, but you just, that you have to unplug that piece sometimes. You just have to try to, actively in your head, like you said, just take a minute, take a deep breath in your head, even if you got to close your eyes and see it being unhooked or unplugged, and just take it that way, because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. It's just going to make things worse.
Gotcha. All right, you got to answer one or the other. What keeps you up a little bit longer at night? A tough conversation with a city member, like somebody from the city, or a tough conversation with somebody that works for you or with you?
That's a tough one. I'd say for me, and again, because I've only been a supervisor for about 2.5 years, is sometimes the personnel things. And like I said, for us, there's only 4 of us. There's me, and we have 3 inspectors. One at which now we just went through a reorg, so bear with me. He used to be a senior inspector. I think his title has changed. But some of the personnel stuff is difficult. And that was one of the things for me getting into this, is just really realizing that everybody's not the same as you. And that's okay, right? And we all kind of know that, but I don't know why that was more eye-opening than it is. But that's just hard, because we're a family, right? We spend more time with them than we do with our actual family.
Yeah.
So that stuff, I've had a couple situations to get to me, but it's the same way. It's like you try to keep your ego out of it. Try to keep yourself level. If you don't stay level and you have something wrong, especially on me, that's on me to make that right. And that's not always easy to do, but you gotta be the bigger man sometimes, or but maybe that's not the right way to word that. But sometimes if you're wrong, you need to be able to fess up to that. Made a mistake.
Sure.
It should have been different.
Gotcha.
And sometimes you got to make tough calls on the personnel side too, and they're not fun. I wish I had a real easy way to tell you to make all that go away or make it always go smooth, but that's life.
Gotcha. All right, it's story time. I need a story from Vineet of when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
All right, I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I have plenty of mistakes, but I'm gonna tell you one that's not too terrible bad, but I think it still gets the point. And it's one that stuck with me, right? But this was a long time ago, back when I was inspecting. It was a stormwater project. We had some rain gardens, but it involved we had to remove and replace some driveways and drive approaches to get the grades right, things like that. But you run into it all the time with sidewalk projects as you're meeting ADA and adjusting it. But so anyway, to make a longer story short, they had high clearance vehicles and things. So I'm like, well, I think we can shrink this driveway up a little bit, and I'll save the city some money, and it'll still work out all right. Well, and it was okay. Well, then I don't remember if it was Thanksgiving or there was some holiday in there. I don't remember exactly what time of year it was, but they had people come visit them. Well, the car scraped, right? And so that was on me to go back to my boss and say, hey, this was on me. I screwed up. And so we had to tear it out, pay the contractor twice to do it. But like I said, the thing, what I wanted to get at that's funny is that grade, like I remember that, where the grade breaks too much. I remember what that one is, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at is when you make those mistakes, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in this field. Maybe not necessarily the scenario I gave, but there's a lot of things that are kind of grade. It'd be wonderful if everything always fit 100% in the specs and plans, but sometimes it doesn't. But if we make the wrong call, I think number one, you got to be willing to take responsibility for it. Number two, or I don't know, maybe these aren't in the right order, but you got to try to learn from it. Try to learn from it. Try to not do it again. And think about what you could have done different. What I always tell my guys that work for me is that if you had something that goes wrong, I'll have your back. If you just have a good explanation and rationality on why you made the decision you made, what you were trying to accomplish, and then we can go from there. Because it's like I said, it's going to happen. The other thing too, on some of these projects are smaller, but some of them are pretty big, and even sometimes like one of the guys may miss a piece of it, and it happens. I mean, we're human, we're all going to make some mistakes, but you just have to fess up to it, try to learn from it, and move on.
Yeah, interesting. And I always try to think like the experience you went through with the uneven ground, the level there. How can you get that across to? Because I'm sure there's many other project managers around the country that will deal with that same issue, and they're thinking, "Oh, I think we could make it. I think we can. I think we can slide it through." So how would you be able to get that information across to people? Is there something set up on the public works side to where like guys can go, "Oh, Vineet had this problem. Here's the issue he had with it. Don't do that." Or is it kind of just one of those things experience is gonna teach you?
It's experience. Like I said, with our stuff and our plans, I mean, that, like I said, now, I mean, that's something like even today, I'm like, we need to look at that one a little bit closer. But yeah, it's just an example. I mean, like, yeah, I'll be honest, like we don't have what that grade break point is in our specifications. We do for our drive approach. It needs to be at this elevation and that's it. But once you get on the private property, we don't have as much. But a lot of it, like I said, does come down to experience, and it takes time.
Sure. All right. So, and speaking of time and experience, I want to know how Vineet continues to get better and better every year. What's your personal and also your professional development regimen like?
Sure. Personally, for me, what I like to do, I like to lift weights. I don't compete or do anything like that. I just have it on the app. You have an app for everything now, but I have an app that keeps track of it, and it's got a little graph and all the things I do. But I just try to compete with myself, try to be better. than it was the day before. Again, kind of back to some of the other stuff as far as helping you keep calm. I think for me, that's pretty critical. I like to try to do that once I get home, and that kind of helps me get, if you have a real tough day or whatever, that kind of helps me get everything out of there, get chilled out a little bit. Like I said, I got 3 daughters. A couple of them are still pretty young. Every once in a while, they may come down there and there's some little stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, Daddy, let's go." And that's cool. But getting off track there a little bit. But then the other thing, I guess personally and professionally too, for me is I've been trying. I've went back to school myself to try to get a bachelor's degree. Started that last January, so still got a little ways to go on that, but trying to do that. And that's been a good experience for me too. Public administration is what I'm going for, and it's just been kind of interesting on that too. With working in this for 20 years, I was a little bit nervous how that would go, but it's went pretty well. It's like the things you learn through your career with working with the public and policies and things that you learn, and so that's been great. The other thing we kind of talked about too, which how a mutual friend and how I got here was I was in the APWA Emerging Leaders Academy at the 22-23 class. That was a fantastic experience. Got to work with a really great group of people from all across the country, and we're all private and public. I think every one of us just about did a different position, so you got a lot of different perspectives on a lot of things. And that's one too that's a little bit outside of that, but my email address is my name, my first name, Vineet Kapila at COMO.gov. Anybody out there that has an interest or has any questions about that program whatsoever, please reach out to me. I'll try to do anything I can to help you out or tell you about it.
I guess I had some questions about it. So do you have to be like somebody new to the industry to do it, or is it somebody new to the position? And then I guess who would be a bullseye target, like an avatar for that position to apply for it?
What I would tell you is what the requirements are is that you have to be in the public works field for 10 years or less, or be a supervisor for 3 years or less. So like I said, I've been in public works at that time. It would have been about 18, 19 years. But I've only been a supervisor for about a year. So that's how I met it. But yeah, that's what it's not just a young professional thing. If you meet those requirements, I would tell you to apply for it. Like I said, it doesn't matter what your career is. It's just about, and you know who you are, people that are out there where you want to keep moving up and keep bettering yourself. And that's really what it's about. It's a program trying to find the leaders, both for APWA and your organization, and personally. You just want to be better than the leaders of tomorrow.
Sure. And then you also talked about weightlifting. It's something I've, haphazardly done all my life with sports and even outside of sports. What would you say the benefit? Because for me, working out is more mental than physical. Like, yeah, your body starts to change, starts to look a little bit better. You start to lose fat and build muscle, which is great for everybody. But the mental side of it is pretty powerful because you're showing yourself putting heavy weight in front of you and moving it. Like, and not too many people can do that. And then it's that feeling of I did something hard today that can better myself. So talk about, you said you like to lift weights. Do you think it'll benefit everybody in public works nation or worldwide to lift some weights before they start?
I do, man. I do. I'm a big proponent of that. I think it's great for you. I agree with you 110%. It's mental. I mean, it sounds silly, right? But you know what I'm talking about. You have conversations sometimes with yourself about it. You're like, hey, buddy, I guess it's your head, or your body's like, I don't want to do that, and you're like, yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it. But yeah, I'm with you. And like I said, I think it's also mentally and physically, I think it's an outlet for those days. It doesn't matter what position you're in, and whether you're public or private, you're going to have days that are rough. And it helped, like I said, at least for me, it gives you an outlet for that stuff. You can let that stuff have it. You know what I mean? It's a good thing down there, let it go. But no, I'm with you 110%. I think it's really good for you mentally. It's really good physically. You bring up a good point too, because if you've been doing it for a while, the big changes you get, they're on the front side, and then it gets really, really slow, and you don't you still make
Oh
progress,
man.
but not.
It's like-
It gets a lot. Yeah, it gets really incremental. But it's great. Like I said, I do it in the basement. That's kind of my thing. I know for other people, it's a great social thing and a great thing outside of work. And in a lot, and I'm getting off subject a little bit too, but I think working in this field, you gotta have hobbies. Like I said, it's hard, it's
oh,
stressful.
100%.
You're dealing with some confrontation sometimes, or quite a bit, and it's just it's good to have those hobbies that are something else that kind of force you to turn your mind off. And it doesn't matter if that's golf for you, or even video games or whatever that may be. I just think it's good to have a
Yeah.
hobby.
No, and I totally agree. Like hobbies are the best thing for anybody doing anything because what happens is like let's say you're trying to solve a problem at work, right? And you just can't wrap your brain around it. What you do is you go home, you do your hobby, whether it's lifting weights or skateboarding, whatever, and your brain is still solving a problem. And then it kicks your brain in this motion of like, hey, we're in the problem solving motion. And then you show up to work the next day and that problem is solved in your brain because you kept that muscle going over time. It doesn't matter if you're, like trying to lift 325 pounds or you're, trying to finish up a bid to or expect to put out for a bid. It's,
Right.
it's solving a problem,
Yeah,
keeps the brain
it's
going.
wild,
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk misconceptions about your position. Let's say I ask your oldest daughter, I'm like, what does Vineet do for the city all day, what value does he add to the community? What would she get totally wrong in answer to that question?
Oh man. Well, first I can say we've got a big range, man, but my oldest one's 19, so it's hard to say
Oh,
I don't want to do anything with you. I tried to get her into all the,
yeah.
because we're a big college town here, University of Missouri, so they have a lot of like women engineering things. I tried to get her into that. I think Dad does that, but I think one thing is two things. I mean, that part of that's the whole point of your show. A lot of people don't even know what public works is or what we do because we're a long time ago, I worked for a guy, and he used to say that like public works was kind of like an offensive lineman for the community. We're talking about sports because they're critical, man. They're critical.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good everything is behind that, but if you don't have those guys up front, kind of putting down the foundation behind the scene, you're not going.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And
And like, how often do you think your left guard?
right.
Never. Right? It's the quarterback and the receiver get all the praise.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
but I think it's that, and then I mean, even my title, Construction Project Superintendent. A lot of people might not know what that is either, and it's I think the biggest misconception is kind of back to the same thing I had is there's in my opinion there's just as much human aspect to this and personal aspect as there is technical, and I really think that in this business sometimes what gets lost is the relationships. The relationships really matter. They matter, like I said, with the property owners. We've kind of talked about that, but they matter a lot on these contracts with the contractor and with the engineers. Like for a project to really shine, it's going to take all three of us. And I think sometimes it can fall into the mindset that even between design and construction that we're opposing teams or something. And it's just not true. And even the contractor, sure, they're there to make money, but they want it to turn out good too. And it's a partnership. That contract is a partnership. We're not opposing teams. We're on the same one. And I think that gets lost a lot too. And that's
a good point.
And that's something I think it seems like that's coming around more, but I think that's pretty important.
Let's say we had to do a ride along with Vineet, right? You had to kind of like, let's say we had cameras all in your face, what's his name? Mike Rose with it, Dirty Jobs. He's like trying to show the world what Vineet does for the city. Walk me through an average, or I guess the most exciting day for Vineet to kind of promote what you do and kind of the problems you solve for your community.
The first thing I tell you that it's part of what I like about this too is it's always something different. We have projects here, but we're on a municipal side, so the biggest project that we may have go on is it might take a couple years, but that's on the big end for us. A lot of them are smaller than that, but it's always something different. And then for me, I mean, there's a lot of time in the office, a lot of time doing emails, phone calls. Right when you hopped on, I was on the phone call just trying to take care of something minor. But but there is a lot of, sometimes the exciting stuff's the stressful stuff. I mean, the first thing this morning I had to do when I got to work was, had to get there first thing, so took my boots home, instead of my office shoes here, but had those but went out to a bridge where we thought that bridge project we had, where we thought there could have been a pretty big problem possibly with the sewer line. Turned out to be okay, no issue, but it's just we get to see cool stuff, man. We're around big equipment all the time. We're working with lots and lots of money, which if you're into that, but the stuff's expensive. It's big numbers, but keeping track of it and seeing how it works, I think, like for me, seeing how things go from the plans into what they turn out to, and that may be hard to explain to somebody that hasn't seen it before, but it gives you a sense of ownership, it gives you a sense of pride when that's done.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure when you see everything come together and successfully complete the project, it makes you feel good,
Gotcha.
But it's just, it is exciting, man. I mean, you just never know. You never know what it's going to be. It's always different. It's always different. Every project's different.
Yeah.
It's,
that's cool.
Yeah, lots of different things that can happen.
Yeah. Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Columbia. What ask of your community would you put on this billboard in regards to public works?
I had a few things. I guess number one on the list is, I'd want to let everybody know that we're here to help you. I think that gets lost sometimes too. I know when these projects are going on, a lot of times they can be pretty ugly. At first, we're going to be tearing stuff. We're going to tear something up, even if it's just a bare road that went through a field somewhere. It's not going to be just a field anymore when we're going, but it's to make things better, and it will get better. It takes a little bit of time to get it there, but it will be better, and we're there to help everybody. I mean, like I said earlier, I try to go talk to those property owners that may be heavily impacted and just say, hey, this is going to happen. It's going to be an inconvenience for you, but let us know what we can do to help. The other thing, which I know you hear this one, I know I'm not the first one to say it, but just slow down a little bit in the work zones. I mean, I know we have plenty of signs and stuff, but it's just as much for your safety as it is mine. For the drivers, it's just as much. And we're all just doing a job and want to go home. I know it's inconvenience. Nobody wants to slow down. Like I said, I got 3 daughters. 2 of them are still pretty young, so like morning in my house is insane. But we're always in a hurry. That's kind of society is we're in a hurry. But it makes a difference. We're not posting that stuff up just to feel good about ourselves, And then the last thing I thought about on this one, I'd like to say is just for the people that are out in the community, that if you have a project that went good, let us know. I mean, I'm not saying we need a pat on the back, pat each other on the back, but it's one of those things that makes you feel really, really good when you get to hear that. And not just always the city or the state, but let the contractor and stuff know too. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. It feels good. We don't, like I said, we're not looking for a pat on the back, but you just don't get to hear it very much. Usually what we hear is the negative sides. And I get that too. Like I said, I mean, that bridge project we got, it was one we tore out the old one and we're putting in a new one. I mean, it's going to be rough. It looks rough right now, but it'll get cleaned up and it'll be nice and be way better than what was there before. You just got to give us.
Yeah. Gotcha. I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey. And then also you got to give a word of inspiration and motivation to your industry. Let's say construction project superintendent counterparts.
I would, the first thing I'd say as far as my counterparts and stuff is just keep doing what you're doing. Don't let the not getting the pat on the back. Don't let that get you down. Don't let any of that stuff get you down. I mean, it doesn't matter. I guess that's not true. If you get knocked down by this, just get up. Don't get discouraged. Keep coming to work every day. Have a smile on your face. Be nice to people. Don't burn bridges. You never know. Like I said, I've been in the same place 20 years, done a lot of different positions. You never know when people are going to come back around. And when that happens, you want that to be a positive. They remember you as a positive, not a negative. That kind of goes back to the same thing. Don't be the guy that's like, oh no, we don't. That's bad news, And like I said, one other thing too, I'd say especially for somebody in my position, don't take this stuff personally. You can't. Like that, again, it's one of those things. It's really easy to say that, but you cannot do that. Like that'll put you down the road. It'll put you in a wormhole, and it'll ruin it for you. Then as far as again, with motivational stuff, I'd say something at least big for me, and it even kind of goes back to the lifting weight stuff, is, set your goals. It's great. I think we all have goals that are way up here, and by all means, we got to have them. But I think we all we can lose sight sometimes. Don't forget to set the ones that are just like right here that you can reach, and those will keep you going. And then, before you know it, sometimes you get enough of those little ones done, and then all of a sudden that big one's not that far away anymore like it was. I mean, just things kind of take care of themselves. And that's been really important for me. Like I said, I think even personally as well as professionally, is just don't forget about those little goals that you can get. I know it's real easy for us to set the high ones, but it's just kind of like a set of plans. If you don't have a way to get there, you're not going to get there. So
true. Yeah. And then also talk about the mentors you had along your journey.
Oh yeah. I remember this one was tough for me. I've been really, really fortunate in my career to have a lot. And, I've worked with a lot of guys that were older than me. And so, some of them have retired now, and some of them are still here. I've also had some really, really good supervisors. But I've had a lot. I can't list everybody, so I got to leave that one kind of open-ended. I think they know who they are. But yeah, I've been really fortunate here. Like I said, I've had some supervisors and managers they're fantastic at what they do, and I tell anybody else that's doing what I'm doing too. If you see somebody like that, try to pay attention to what they do, keep track of those things, and try to mimic those things, or try to do those things yourself, and pick up on it. You're like, hey, that worked good for me, and so yeah, that's what I try to do, and I hope that I can do that someday too. Help some of these younger guys out in the future.
Gotcha. Sure. What would you say is the best practice to find a mentor? That's usually the question I get, is like, how do I find a mentor, somebody to mentor me? What's your best practice for doing that?
I would say it's kind of one of those things. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and just feel it out if it's, and because some of this stuff, again, back to the thing, we're all people, right? So kind of find somebody that's maybe a supervisor that you click with. Maybe it's lifting weights. Maybe it's they like watching the same sports team as you. You have something in common that's outside of this stuff. And then it's got, obviously, try to find somebody that's open, willing to talk to you, and willing to show you things. Because there's a lot of people out there too that they may know a lot, but that's just not their thing for one reason or another. So you got to have somebody that's willing to show you that. And like I said, that's what I had that was really important. Is a lot of guys, when I started, they're like, hey, this shows us on the plan, but here it is here, and this is kind of how it comes together. But I think that's the biggest thing, is you try to find somebody that you can get along with first, that you know is knowledgeable, or maybe it's even somebody that you look up to a little bit. Just try reaching out to them.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, so let's say we're in your basement. We got a whole bunch of weights in front of us. Walk me through what your normal workout is.
I can tell you kind of what I do is it's the Windler 531. If you know what that one is, if you heard of that one.
Windler 531. No, okay.
We'll see. I'm getting older. I may have to switch. It's more lifting, focus on heavy stuff. I'm getting older, but
okay.
But so basically, what I'll do is it's all free weights, right? But it's like Monday is your like overhead press day, and then you do like a light bench press, pretty light, And Tuesday's deadlift day, which it's supposed to have squats too, but I'll be honest, like I can't. With both of those, I can't handle it.
Yeah. I don't do squats anymore.
And then Wednesday have off, and then Thursday is like your bench press day and light overhead press, and then Friday's your squats, and then I go on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, we're getting pretty nasty weather here. I mean, I got to be careful. It's 52 degrees, so it's not too bad. So I got to be right. I got to be careful. But for us, it could be a lot worse. So I got to be careful here.
Oh, I know.
But I like to get out and like walk and stuff too, and that's something my wife likes that with the kids.
Nice.
Like I said, we have some nice trails and stuff.
Nice. Let's say I'm coming to Columbia. I text you ahead of time. I'm like, Vineet, where can I go to get the best burger in town? Where are you gonna send me?
All right, man. This one's I'm going to be kind of controversial maybe here too a little bit, but in my opinion, it's billiards on Broadway, man, is the name of it. It's a pool hall place. I'll be honest, I'm not real big at all on playing pool, but if you went in there, definitely get a burger and french fries. What I get, if you like spicy stuff, they have a ghost pepper cheese in there, which I know sometimes the ghost pepper stuff is too much. And this one's spicy, don't get me wrong, but it's not like, I like spicy stuff, but there's some ghost pepper stuff that'll kill you. It's not,
Okay.
it's not that bad. But if you like, you know, they got cheddar and pepper jack and everything, but they're phenomenal. I love it. If you like craft beer, they got a whole bunch of that in there. I think most of them or all of them, maybe all of them, a lot of them are from Missouri. But it's good, man. It's killer. They have a beer cheese too. That's a local. It's called Snapper, but they have a beer cheese you can dip the French fries in.
Okay.
But yeah, they have specialty burgers. And I got to say the other one too that a lot of people like is Booch's. But for me, if you ask me, like you said, I'm going to say go to Billiards. It's about a block and a half from City Hall too, so it works.
Oh man, that's too easy.
Downtown Columbia, we have a nice downtown here. So.
Gotcha. Good stuff. All right. So thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Vineet, any final words before we get out of here?
No, I guess I'd just say thank you for reaching out. Let me give me a platform to tell my story. I hope somebody gets something out of it. Like I said, for anybody that has questions about any of this stuff or anything I can do, don't hesitate to reach out. You know, if you just probably put in City of Columbia, Vineet Kapila, I'm probably going to come up. I don't think there's too many other ones.
I don't think so. Good stuff. Well, Vineet, thank you for hopping on the show. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you for tuning in.